So imagine you're having a really bad week, like a genuinely catastrophic, historically unprecedented bad week. Now imagine that week involves not one, but two atomic bombs, and you survive both of them. That is the actual true story of Tsutomu Yamaguchi, and somehow it gets weirder from there. Let's start from the beginning. It's August 1945. World War II is almost over. Japan is losing badly. The US has a new weapon that nobody has ever used before in the history of warfare. They're about to use it twice, in 3 days, on the same man. Tsutomu Yamaguchi was a 29-year-old naval engineer working for Mitsubishi. Normal guy. Has a wife, has a kid, goes to work. In the summer of 1945, his company sends him on a 3-month work trip to a city called Hiroshima. He does his job, finishes his assignment, and on August 6, 1945, he is walking to the train station to go home. He realizes he forgot his travel permit at the office, so he turns around to go get it. This small, annoying, completely mundane decision to go back for a piece of paper is the reason this story exists. He is now slightly closer to the center of the city than he would have been. At 8:15 in the morning, the US bomber Enola Gay drops Little Boy over Hiroshima. Yamaguchi is approximately 3 kilometers from the hypocenter. The explosion is so bright he describes it as a giant magnesium flare going off in his face. The shockwave picks him up and throws him into a potato field. He wakes up face down in the dirt. His eardrums are ruptured. He is temporarily blind. His arms are severely burned. He is 3 kilometers from ground zero of the first nuclear weapon ever used in war, and he is alive. He spends the night in an air raid shelter. The city around him is completely destroyed. Tens of thousands of people are dead. He finds 2 colleagues who also survived. Together they walk through the ruins of Hiroshima to get to the train station. He described walking through a city that looked like the surface of the moon. Completely flat, completely silent, almost nothing standing. He gets on a train, goes home to Nagasaki. Now at this point you might be thinking, okay, he survived 1 atomic bomb, went home. End of story, incredible. But no, because the story has a sequel, and the sequel comes 3 days later, August 9th, 1945. Yamaguchi goes back to work. His wounds are bandaged. His hearing is coming back. He is reporting to his supervisor about what happened in Hiroshima. His supervisor understandably does not believe him. A single bomb that destroyed an entire city. Ridiculous. So Yamaguchi is standing in his supervisor's office, bandaged head to toe, explaining the concept of nuclear warfare. At 11:02 in the morning, the US drops Fat Man over Nagasaki. Yamaguchi is approximately 3 kilometers from the hypocenter. Again, the same distance, different city, same man. The white light fills the office window. His supervisor, mid-conversation, watches a second atomic bomb go off in front of his eyes. We do not know if this made him more or less likely to believe the first story. The explosion blows out the windows, knocks Yamaguchi off his feet, and fills the room with fire and black smoke. He survives again. He crawls out of the rubble. He finds his family. His wife and son had also survived, sheltering close enough to the outskirts of the city to avoid the worst of the blast. His bandages from Hiroshima are completely blown off by the second explosion. He has now been within 3 kilometers of both nuclear detonations in human history. After the second bomb, he basically gives up on surviving. He stops eating. He has radiation sickness, high fever, hair falling out. He later said he was convinced he was going to die, and he made peace with it. His wife goes out into the destroyed city to find food, specifically looking for pumpkins, which were one of the few things still growing in the rubble. She comes back with pumpkins. He eats them. He starts recovering. He credits the pumpkins. Japan surrenders on August 15th, 1945. The war ends. Yamaguchi goes back to his life. He works as a teacher for a while. He mostly doesn't talk about what happened. For decades, he is not widely known outside Japan. He is just a man who had an extremely bad August. Here is where it gets philosophically interesting. For most of his life, Yamaguchi refused to speak publicly about his experience. He found it too painful, too difficult. But in his later years, in his 80s and 90s, he changed his mind. He started giving interviews, wrote a book, spoke at the United Nations. His message was not anger or bitterness. It was pretty simple. Nuclear weapons should never be used again. Coming from literally the only man on Earth who had experienced both of them firsthand. That carries a certain weight. Japan officially recognized him as a survivor of both bombings, which they call a Niju Hibakusha, meaning double bomb survivor. There were actually other people who were in both cities during both bombings. Estimates suggest somewhere between 70 and 200 people survived both blasts, but Yamaguchi is the only one Japan officially recognized as a double survivor. He spent years trying to get the government to acknowledge the others too. He lived to be 93 years old. He died in January 2010 of stomach cancer. Doctors believe the cancer was related to his radiation exposure. So in a very delayed, very cruel way, the bombs did eventually get him, 65 years later.